On December 9th, 1978, Joseph attacked a house at 2 a.m. in a town called Danville in Contra Costa, California. Okay. Cops are investigating the area where a suspicious vehicle had been parked when they find 3 pieces of paper. So they see this suspicious looking vehicle. They're looking inside the vehicle and they find these 3 pieces of paper. The first piece of paper looked like it was homework, okay? It looked like school homework. Weird. And it seemed like it was an essay of some sorts. And then on the second page, there seemed to be a journal entry about how much this person who was writing on this paper hated their 6th grade teacher. They're like, wow, this kid really hates this teacher. Then on the third page is what intrigued police the most. On one side of the page, the word punishment was written in a kind of sloppy handwriting. And on the other side was a drawing of like a map of the neighborhood, And the police, they couldn't figure out what neighborhood it was, but they felt like it was a map that represented the rapist's desired hunting ground and somehow held clues that they couldn't seem to unlock. Oh my God, what if it was just like some kid like making a map or something? Because they never figured out like what the map was of, like what area it was. But they thought it was, what's his name, Joseph. But now that I'm like sitting here thinking about it, what if it was just like some kids shit and they were like, kids like to, no, punishment? I don't know, Bailey. Shh. You know what sucks? Like, without DNA, I don't know how they were solving mysteries. Well, obviously they weren't solving mysteries. I mean, this is a different game. It's like, how do you figure their shenanigans out? Anywho, so after they discover these pages that they believe is linked to Joseph, he would attack 7 more times. And not long after the rape he committed on July 5th, 1979, Joseph, he had like a little slip up that could have derailed his whole double life and everything he had going on. Oh yes, a little slip up. Nobody's perfect. And he was getting a little cocky, I think. I'm not sure. Okay, so Joseph, yeah, here's where he messes up. He shoplifts. And he ends up getting caught. So then he gets arrested for shoplifting, right? Great. He gets caught shoplifting a hammer and dog repellent. That in itself should hold him longer than just shoplifting. It seemed like, if anything, he was about to murder a damn animal. Anyways, so he gets arrested. Like, why are you stealing this stuff, you weirdo? Joseph got off pretty easy. He was only sentenced to 6 months probation. But they had him. So I guess the police department didn't want to have a criminal on their force. And he ended up getting fired in October of 1979. Now, Joseph, he was not too thrilled about being fired. That was not in his plan. So then he gets fired and he threatens to kill the police chief. Okay? He's like, I'm going to fucking kill you. And he ends up stalking the police chief, his home, the area, and just like being a real creep about it, okay? You would think this kind of behavior suggests that maybe someone should have like looked into him a little bit better because he's obviously not well, but they didn't. He was just like, wow, that guy's weird. He needs to let it go. He keeps stalking me. Weird. You think that would have set off some red flags? I'm sorry, we ask too much, don't we? Yeah, I know. So Joseph loses his job. He's like, where? I lost my job. So he decides, okay, we need to pick up and move again. So him and his wife, they moved down to Southern California to get a new start. So with this new start, he's got a new start with crime. Great, he's excited. New area. Joseph's final crime spree happened in Santa Barbara, Ventura, and the Orange County area, which earned him the name the Original Night Stalker. Yeah. So at first he was known as just the Night Stalker, but as you may remember from like I did a previous story, Ricardo Ramirez, he was also given the name the Night Stalker from his crime spree in 1984 and 1985. Because of the mix-up happening, right? Joseph's Night Stalker crime spree was then nicknamed the Original Night Stalker. They can't think of anything else. They're like, that's all we caught. How about Original Night Stalker, eh? So, okay, not to get confused with Night Stalker, this is the Original Night Stalker. Great. October 1979. Joseph was back at it. This time, in Southern California, he wasn't just burglarizing and raping people. Now he was just straight up murdering people too. So it just really progressed. His first 2 victims would end up surviving his attacks, but many others were not so lucky. Joseph's first attack as the original Night Stalker was on October 1st, and he broke into a home. He tied the couple up. He's telling them, like, I'm going to kill you. I'll kill them. And of course, the couple is freaking out. Who wouldn't? Great. You understand. And as soon as Joseph leaves the room, I guess the woman, she's trying to escape. She's realizing she can't. And then she starts screaming at the top of her lungs. And she's really hoping to alert one of her neighbors. Now, normally, Joseph's victims didn't scream like that. No one had actually tried him like that. And he was like, oh shit. She's screaming, So he knows that this is going to mean trouble for him. And at that point, after she's screaming, he decides to just bail. So he hops on his bicycle and he just pedals away. The woman is screaming, right? Joseph is pedaling away. Well, guess what? The neighbor that's hearing the woman scream, he ends up being an FBI agent. And he runs outside. He spots Joseph trying to make his getaway on the bicycle. And this guy starts to chase after him. For some reason, Joseph thinks he's got a better chance avoiding getting caught by just getting off the bike and running on foot. So he does just that, and he's able to get away from him. He almost gets caught so many different times. It's like, darn it. His second attack as the original Night Stalker was a bit more successful. Yeah, I guess you could say. On December 30th, Joseph breaks into the home of a couple named Robert and Deborah, and he kills them before stealing a bike from the apartment next door and then making his getaway. The couple was found shot to death, but Robert's bindings were untied, which suggests to investigators that he attempted some sort of attack on Joseph. Like maybe he was able to get out or something. Police found the stolen bike abandoned not too far from the apartment. They also found large dog prints at the scene, which made them think did Joseph bring a dog with him? That was new. That was a new move. There had never been evidence of a dog at the crime scene before. But also, he stole dog repellent. So maybe it was someone else's dog and Joseph scared it away. Maybe it was their dog. On March 13th, 1980, Joseph attacks again. This time attacking a couple. He breaks in, he ties their wrists and ankles with a drapery cord before he rapes the woman and then bludgeons them both to death with a log taken from the wood pile on the side of their house. Now, police find something unique about this attack. Okay, an unusual Chinese knot called a diamond knot was used to bind the woman's wrists. This is the same knot that was used on at least one of the confirmed victims of the East Area rapists. So this is the first time that they're making the connection that these could be linked together. So Joseph was given another name, which I don't think I mentioned at the beginning, the Diamond Knot Killer. They spend more time naming the killers than they do trying to solve the crime. They're like, what should we name him this time? Diamond Knot, you guys? Yeah. Let's do that. Joseph's next victims were a newlywed couple. One of them was a student at UC Irvine, and the other was a nurse. They had been married for just a couple of months, and they lived in a really nice gated community out in Dana Point, California. So on August 19th, just 3 months after the wedding, Joseph broke into their apartment, tied them both up, raped the woman before bludgeoning both of them to death. This time, Joseph didn't leave a murder weapon behind, and he actually even took whatever he tied their hands and wrists with, which was different because he would normally leave it behind. What Joseph didn't realize he left behind was a really angry rich brother, which we'll get to that later, because shit's coming to you, bro. At some point during 1980, Joseph and his wife Sharon buy a house in Citrus Heights, California, but that doesn't seem to stop him from attacking 2 more times in 1981. On February 6, 1981, Joseph entered the home of a 28-year-old woman. He tied her up, once again raped her, and then bludgeoned her to death. And like the crime scene at the home of the previous couple, he didn't leave behind the murder weapon or whatever he tied her up with. And he did move a television outside in the backyard. I don't know. Maybe he was trying to make it look like it was a failed robbery and like keep the police off his trail, but maybe he wanted the TV. I don't know. On July 27th, Joseph decided to return to his old stomping ground, and he went back to an area that was only a few blocks away from the neighborhood he first visited as the original Night Stalker. And Joseph, he enters the house through a small bathroom window, and that's when he runs into like the guy who lives there. Okay, now this guy he's like 27 years old, and police believe that this guy, he must have tried to attack Joseph because he had no marks on him suggesting that he had been tied up. They found his head covered with clothes that seemed to have been pulled from the closet, with a gunshot wound in the cheek, and evidence that he was killed with a garden tool. And then there's a woman in the house also, and she was found with bruises on her wrists and ankles that suggested she had been tied up, and then she was raped and bludgeoned to death. While the restraints were missing from her body, cops did find a piece of shipping twine near the bed, and there were fibers all over her body that they couldn't identify. Cops thought maybe the attacker worked as a painter or a similar type of job at like the shopping center nearby, but they weren't sure. They're like, we have theories, but that's about it. Joseph's final attack was on May 4th, 1986. He breaks into a home where there's like a teenager. She's home alone. Her family's away on vacation, and she got left behind. Maybe she wanted to. Either way, Joseph enters her home. He bludgeoned her to death and then rapes her. There was a pipe wrench that was missing from the house, and police believed that that was the murder weapon. And then that was it. 41-year-old Joseph's 13-year crime spree came to an end.